Hmm. RPG a Day 2017, and it's day 15. And let's check what our question for the day is. Which RPG do you enjoy adapting the most? This is kind of funny because again, this keeps coming again, where I feel like the most juiciest answers would come from someone who's had a ton of variety, where each question could be kind of answered with a different game. Though that's of course not what the questions are looking for, because you might have just played one single game, but still, I feel like I'm constantly repeating myself with these game titles because no surprise to anyone, D&D again. And of course, D&D 5th edition is kind of creeping up on where I could just say from the games that I enjoy adapting the most, 5th edition D&D is kind of creeping up over the generically just D&D, because I've really enjoyed the 5th edition, and I've played it quite a bit, and compared to 3.5, which I used to play mostly before that, it's like night and day the way how positively I approach this mechanic and the system compared to the 3.5. Uh, when it comes to D&D, I've never even looked upon D&D as something that you wouldn't adapt, in the sense that I know that there's all these already made settings and published setting books that are, that are good, source materials there for, especially if you're kind of running something at a convention or to a new player, where you can just, jump to it. You have ready-made short adventures that you can just kind of run one shots from, and you can just, tell somebody like, oh, let's play Planescape, let's play Ravenloft, let's play Forgotten Realms, and they'll immediately have a pretty clear idea of what that setting is like, as opposed to introducing them to a setting you've created yourself. Though I always create the setting myself. I don't use any of the existing settings when I run D&D, and I don't use the existing gods. I don't use, mainly I use the player character races and classes and stuff like that. Those are the things I rarely touch, because I don't have that sort of good sense of making balanced and mechanically working new classes and races that gel well together. Well, I might do one or two maybe sometime, someday in the future, where I would want to try something out, but it's something where it's outside of my comfort zone. The mechanics department is something where I always kind of like, well, I trust the people who made this kind of knew what they were doing, at least to some extent, and I just take what they use and create, and maybe just tweak it a little bit here and there, but nothing major. Like I said, out of my comfort zone. But yeah, it's like the more I could say about that is pretty much talking about the sort of adaptations I've made. The current game I'm running at the moment, is I've got some, drawings I already showed before, of this setting of this island, this tropical island, and I made my own set of gods, and they're not really gods. They're more like saints and archdemons kind of thing, and in I purposefully made the gods and demons have very um, very kind of ancient Iron Age Finnish mythology sounding names, because I run this to a Finnish face-to-face group here locally. I don't run it to a online group where we game in English, so that's why all that info was in Finnish. But yeah, it's like the idea is that in terms of gods, there's only like one god, which is completely impersonal. It doesn't have a personality. It doesn't have any distinctive features. It's just kind of the void. It's kind of oblivion, abyss, somewhere. And all these kind of demons and saints have been kind of pulled up. They've kind of been raptured in past ages, in like thousands of years ago, each at their own kind of time there. And there's different gods for different things. There's gods or saints for justice, like dwarven god Rautaparta for justice. There's well, I can't read it, you know, from behind it, so I can't remember even all the names. So I'm really good at introducing a setting of my own creation this way. Well, there's basically a gnome saint. There's a human saint, there's a halfling saint, and then there's a elven saint. And all these archdemons, demon of death, demon of wilderness and savagery, demon of basically of hedonism and excess, a demon of war, and demon of betrayal and lies and deceit and all that. They're all dragons. Demons and devils in this setting are kind of like an afterthought. Like it kind of dawned on me when a player wanted to play a tiefling, where I was like, kind of like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. But it's like when players are playing, there's 2 players in this campaign who are playing like half dragons, and you know, people react to them as if they were seeing like demons walking down the street, kind of thing. And there's like a black dragon for death, a white dragon for the savagery stuff, a red dragon for excess, a blue dragon for war, and a green dragon for deception. And you know, the point of this setting is basically that it's a basically like a conquistador pirate Indiana Jones mixture in D&D. And the point is that everybody lives here on this big metropolis, coastal city called Santa Bazaar, and there's this island that's, you know, an island of death, basically, like this South American Amazonian jungle kind of a place that has all sorts of monsters roaming around in it. Mainly, it has mainly bullywugs and lizard people, and that's kind of my insert for, you know, kind of goblins and orcs in terms of their difficulty and all that. And of course, there's also a Tarrasque, and the way I use the Tarrasque in this is basically like Godzilla. Like, this is Monster Island. This is like, it's a living force of nature kind of a thing, where it's like Tarrasque came from underneath the Earth's crust and plunged the island into, you know, this age of just savagery and death and all that. And everybody is like trying to interpret that in terms of is this some sort of divine punishment for something we've done? Is this some sort of a sign of the end times? Is this, you know, something nature turning against us or something like that? There's a lot of like hubbub and speculation going around, and lots of little hysterical religious groups kind of having their own idea about it and reacting accordingly. And once the Tarrasque came to the island, with them came also slews of lizard people and bullywugs, and completely took over the island and killed its native dwarven, kind of jungle dwarven population. And the thing is that the dwarven saint was actually like his high temple is right there. I don't know if it makes it up, but there's like a huge mountain on top of which is like the high temple, and it's kind of like it's here. You can see it here. It's a ruin by a waterfall, and there's the Tarrasque in the distance. And the thing is that the saint, the dwarven saint of justice, was kind of a a patriarch of his people, this kind of theocratic patriarch, you know. And once he was kind of raptured out of the island, he had 4 sons who started a horrendous civil war on the island, and they all had their own reasons why they should inherit this patriarchal position and all this stuff. This is basically, yeah, the players are basically, for different reasons, for each character, they're hired to basically go on a ship and go treasure hunting. Either they've been hired to hunt a specific treasure because, you know, after the Tarrasque and the lizard people and the bullywugs came, they pretty much destroyed the entire culture, committed basically genocide on the island. but because there's a lot of family lines that are descended from people who were killed there. There's a lot of relics, family emblems, and all sorts of meaningful things people want to steal. There's also a lot of religious artifacts people want to get their hands on. There's lots of just plain gold and jewels and stuff like that because it was a wealthy place. There's natural resources people want to get their hands on. There's all sorts of stuff like that. So depending on the player's character, they have varying motivations to go there, and everybody that goes there and comes back is pretty much branded a celebrity and a local hero, because usually boats return from that place with just a couple of people surviving and stuff. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. Sadly, nobody's playing a cleric or anyone that religious. The most religious character is a paladin character, and of course they've dedicated themselves to the archdemon of lies, and he happens to be a green dragon, like a half green dragon character, and it's been great. He's one of my favorite characters, and I talked about him before in an earlier video where he inspired me quite a bit, where he was a first-time player. He wanted to play a lawful evil character and a green dragonborn character in a setting where green dragons are considered archdemons of lies and betrayal and all that, and he wants to be a paladin. And on top of which, he put as a character background that he's a folk hero. So we created this setup where the lord he's in service to, whose household he is like in this privileged position in. When the Lord is this controversial figure where the people, like the common folk, love him because he's like a populist, and he takes justice into his own hands. He sends out his paladin to pick up like drug dealers and pimps and violent people and everybody who escapes the law, basically, and brings them to this lord's kind of manor and or his kind of castle, and they are publicly executed outside the law, but it's made a huge spectacle out of, and because they hold so much political sway, the actual like justice system can't touch them, that kind of thing, to where they're basically evil. They do evil things. They're extremely violent. They're tyrannical. They're fascistic. They are the character's motivation is to basically become a tyrant, because then he can do the right thing, which is, of course, spread this hard-line, iron-fisted justice. He wants to become a tyrant and a dictator for, in his head, good reasons. So that's been a lot of fun. The plot has been circulating quite a bit around his character, and everybody else has great characters with great motivations as well, and everything is tied to the setting nicely, and it's just been a blast. It's been a lot of fun. The creative side of adapting a mechanic and creating a setting of your own is a huge part of the enjoyment, just as I did with the DC Universe role-playing game and my Midnight City campaign setting, where I didn't want to run something where Superman and Batman and Gotham City and Metropolis and all those things, exist in the game world. I wanted to create something from scratch, and the same thing with D&D, but it's just I've only ran the DC game once, and D&D is something I've done quite a bit, so yeah, that's the game I like to adapt the most. So yeah, without making this video like half hour or longer, I think that's a good point to stop. Maybe there's going to be questions in the future where I need to reference this game again, so let's leave something out of it. So yeah, see you tomorrow. Haven't had a good black Indian pale ale in a while. Real nice.